Hey, so I had a class or like a workshop over Zoom today with the Temple of the Way of Light, with a facilitator from there and some other lovely folks. And I just wanted to write down some, not write down, make a video about some of the things that I found useful and beautiful about it that I don't want to lose. I want to be able to come back to it if I want to. So, the basic idea is the difference between inspiration and motivation and how that can inform your what you feel like your calling is in life. And basically the difference is that motivation is attached to an outcome or has to do with compensating for some perceived shortcoming. So, like, I have to do this job to make money to live. I have to be nice so people will like me. I have to write a book so that my life will amount to something and people will see me as a serious person, that kind of thing. Um, Whereas inspiration is it's an expression of something ineffable, indefinable, uncontrollable. Like it's not something where okay, I will do this to get that, and this is the path, and this is it's it bubbles up, it's like, and you can't make it happen. Inspiration just happens uh, from something. It feels like a connection to something beyond your small self. And it can't be inauthentic. It cannot be inauthentic. Um, and how do you know if it's authentic? Because I mean, it's like everything else. It takes some discernment. It might take some practice. It might take asking somebody who's been on the path a while. Because people on the workshop were talking about, like, well, I felt inspired to do this, but then you realize, oh, that was actually a compensation for something and not a fountain from your deepest being, just yearning for expression. Um, some people, maybe they've never even felt it in their lives. Um, it's got so tamped down that that bubbling up just stopped happening or never had a chance to happen, maybe. Because I mean, I think about being a really small child and things like playing with worms in the gutter. Like that was something that felt really alive to me. Um, or playing in a creek, that kind of thing. Like doing something absolutely for the sake of just the sights and the textures and the wonder of it. Um, yeah, I wasn't trying to do worm research and get a grant for it. It was just like how fascinating these wiggling things that move on their own and wind up in the drainage ditch, and like, and then there's the water and it's rippling and it's making shapes, and it's the lights reflecting off of it in different ways, and the rich brown mud on the bottom, and I don't know, everything. I don't know, you can try to put words on it, but it's sort of stands out as a purely enjoyable childhood memory. Um, and yeah, so she asked us to look back on our own moments of inspiration. And for me, most of them, I mean, the common denominator really for the most inspiring moments is pure presence, like being fully where you are. You like not wondering, not looking forward or back, just like really dialed in, often in nature. Um, And then things like wanting to do things that make no sense, like studying abroad, even though I was a physics major, studying languages for fun, doing theater, even though it like tanked my physics grade, because I wasn't paying much attention to physics that quarter. Traveling, writing, just for the sheer joy of it. Things that scared and stretched me that had no defined outcome. That, I mean, literally, if I never published a word in my life, I still wanted to write. Um, but they asked us to share one example, and the one that came to me was sophomore year. Because before I was a physics major, I was an engineering major. Why was I an engineering major? Because engineers made good money, and I was good at science and math, and that's what you do. But I would look at the course catalog and see how the engineering majors like just really packed all these engineering classes into your schedule to the point that you can't really do much else. And it made me feel suffocated. It made me feel depressed. It made me feel trapped. Because there were so many things I wanted to explore. And if this thing was just taking up all of my real estate, then, and not to mention, do I give a shit about making cell phones or what the fuck ever? No, I don't. Not even a little bit. Some people do, and that's great. I'm not knocking it. But for me, couldn't give a shit. And so, but still, it's kind of like, well, what else am I going to do? But then I had a summer in 1999, after my freshman year, working with a bunch of hippies in Santa Cruz, doing environmental, advocacy, raising money for national parks and stuff like that. And yeah, it was just like I was still pretty fresh out of Oklahoma, and this was the first time I ever smoked pot and did mushrooms and sat in the hills, with of Santa Cruz and the hills between San Jose and Santa Cruz, La Honda and all that. Just like, man, just vibing with the redwoods, going to widespread panic shows and all that kind of stuff, and really getting into the Grateful Dead because I never really didn't know what the hell that was. Of course, Jerry was gone by then, but Phil and Friends was still, we went to a Phil and Friends concert. And yeah, just the whole, I guess I kind of got a shot of the 60s right there in 1999. And the whole kind of like fuck the man vibe and all that kind of stuff. And I learned a lot of stuff about how industry, even back then, and it's much worse now, but even back then, they used their money and their clout to fool people into supporting terrible policies that hurt everybody. And so like all that, consciousness was raised and this and that. And then I get back to school and it's like, okay, back to engineering class, right? But then like one day I walked out of my dorm and I saw like the biggest, fattest, juiciest rainbow. And something about just the colors and the textures, the clouds and the gray and the shining band and the electromagnetism and just like, it was just sort of like, it just blew my mind. You know how sometimes ordinary things can just blow your mind out of nowhere. So that's what happened. And I was just like knocked back on my ass by this rainbow, by this universe. And I just like went back in my room and fell on my knees, and I was like under a chair, just like totally prostrated before the gorgeous mystery of existence. And it was like I think it was that day that it's like, I'm done. I'm not going to be a fucking engineer. I don't care. I chose to be a physics major because it didn't have a lot of requirements and I was good at it. It's pretty easy for me. So um, it gave me the space to do all kinds of things that I enjoyed. Because, a lot of physics majors, like, they'll take also physics electives. And that wasn't me. I was taking, geology field seminar and backpacking and improvisation for theater and history and politics class. Oh, I got a minor in political science as well. That was a whole. The education was mostly a meta education, but anyway, that's another story. Um, yeah, so I mean, I was just like a jack of all trades, master of none, kind of, and it's like, I'll worry about that later. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, but that's for somebody else to worry about. Um, So, but I had fun, man. I took a lot of classes that I really enjoyed, and that moment of inspiration, I feel like it was a turning point in my life. And so the exercise was, take that story of inspiration and put it into a sentence that's like, my calling is people, verbing, noun or adjective or whatever. Like, so my kind of word salad was, my calling is people feeling awe and gratitude, feeling glad to be here amid the wonder and freedom of being truly authentic. Um, and she asked me, she says, out of all that word salad, what really comes through? And I said, I didn't say this word, but what comes through is joy, actually. And, joy feels scary to me and out of reach still. Like, even though, it happens sometimes, but it almost feels like it's an accident when it happens. Like, it's not really for me. It's not really baseline. It's almost like, and it's almost like a tease. It's almost like something that sort of gets handed to me occasionally just so it can be yanked back away 99% of the time or whatever. And it's not that that's been my consistent experience, but that belief, it was when I was a kid, that when I was a kid, oh my God, I was miserable most of my childhood. Yeah, because as a kid, I wasn't really allowed to be sad or angry or joyful. If that happened, like if I started dancing around, my mom would be like, "Stop flitting around! You're gonna break a toe." So if I was crying, it's like, I'll give you something to cry about. If I was angry, it's like, you are so spoiled, that kind of thing. So it was always met with like disdain and or alarm, like it was dangerous to feel what I was feeling or to express a genuine emotion, or express any. Dancing around the house, I felt actually inspired, and then that was just shut down. So I felt completely trapped in this inescapable, just like sticky gravy of like something being fundamentally wrong with my true expression. And I developed a core belief that I'm not enough, and whatever happens, I'm going to screw it up. I'll manage to screw it up. So yeah. The message of inspiration is that everything is enough, and it's impossible to screw anything up. Like, I mean, I suppose you can, in a way, you can kind of like betray or ignore or disdain your own inspiration. but it's always, I mean, you can always find a way to pick it back up. Like it's never gone forever. I feel like. And yeah, like presence, inspiration. Well, presence has to do with fullness, like there's nothing bleeding out or drawing back from what's happening. It's all everything. It's just here. Everything's just here. It's full, totally full, and fully alive. And yeah. So what the facilitator said, and by the way, what came through, my calling, whatever, or something that I want to orient to is just this kind of wild, untamed joy that I felt like was kind of robbed from me as a kid, and that I still, like I say, like I still have this limiting belief that it's not really for me, or something bad's going to happen if I'm joyful, or I'm just going to spend 99% of my time miserable. So even if I get the joy, it's just an aberration. But she said, good. It's good that feels scary and out of reach. Just orient to it, throw your hat over the wall without knowing how you're going to get over the wall, with faith that the path will reveal itself. And, in a way, I know that. Like, I've experienced it enough times. Like, I've hit zero so many times as far as, like, I didn't have any money, or I didn't have any ideas, or I didn't have, like, I've just hit the end of the road in a way so many times. And always, I get fired, or don't get a book deal when I've kind of hinged everything on getting a book deal. But I always find a way, beg, borrow, and steal. There's always, or a waitress, whatever. There's always a way. I always find a way. And again, if I have a lot of privilege in many ways, and access to people who can help me get jobs and that kind of thing. So it's I'm not gonna pretend otherwise. I mean, there may be times for some people where you hit the wall and you're homeless and there's no way to get out, and that happens to people. So even that, like, that's not necessarily the end of the road, like there's sometimes you die. So I don't mean to laugh. It's like it's just reality. Even if you have every privilege in the world, you can die, at any moment. So that's reality. But for most people, I would say, who are going to be watching this video, you have more options than you probably think you do. And that's kind of what the book I'm writing now is about. But anyway, point is, I've experienced that enough times that I should know that the universe isn't going to do what you want it to do. Like, it's not going to look necessarily anything like you imagine it to look. Sometimes it's much better. Sometimes you fall flat on your face, right? But even that sometimes is exactly what needed to happen. You can look back and say, yeah, that's what needed to happen there. Or, whatever, it's tautology, it happened, so what else can you say about it? But yeah, so far, things have worked out pretty well. Even when I threw my hat over a wall and had no idea what the fuck was on the other side. But yeah, often there comes a point when something in me does cling to something, whether it's like wanting to be pregnant and have a child and that not happening, and me being unable to sort of chill out until my wish was granted. I had quite a hard time with that, hitting that particular wall for 4 long years. So the thing, of course, but in the end, in my case, as it happened, I have 2 beautiful, healthy children. It could have ended differently in any number of ways, and that would have been what happened. That would have been grist for the mill of human growth. Maybe it. Yeah, but what happened did happen. I'm very grateful for it. It's definitely grist for plenty of growth, as it is. But yeah, it's like the trust has to be complete, or you stay kind of stuck and miserable to some extent. And that is scary. And I'm coming up against that again now with the, where I am on this path where I feel like I'm getting close to letting go of some last vestiges of any illusion of any control. And it's extremely uncomfortable that part of me keeps clinging and just, it's like a cat. It's like trying to put a cat in a carrier, there's just the claws are ripping everything as you're trying to somehow contain that wish to control. But of course you don't contain the wish to control. You feel all the way deeply into why you wish to control. And it's pretty deeply uncomfortable until you can really, really feel all the way into it. And it's exactly that. It's like it's either all or nothing. It's either 100% or you're miserable. So, and sort of getting to 100% is not that simple. It requires some concentration, requires some authenticity, requires some courage, requires some clarity, requires presence. It does not. Bullshit has no quarter here. But I thought that distinction between inspiration and motivation, I'm finding that really, really helpful and useful in general, and hope you might as well.